Hey everyone, and welcome back to this series where I analyze the Persona 3 characters under the lens of the tarot archetypes and the Fool's Journey. Consider watching part 1, 2, and 3 since this is a multiple part series, but otherwise let's jump right into part 4 of the character analyses. The 10th archetype that the Fool encounters on his journey is the Wheel of Fortune, which is otherwise shortened to just the Fortune in the Persona games. The Fortune is represented by none other than the leader of Strega, and our personal revolver Jesus, Takaya Sakaki. Now, the main dilemma of the Fortune teaches the Fool all about the ups and downs that are faced in life, and how he can still move forward despite these uncertainties. So how does this exactly apply to Takaya? Well, the Upright Fortune is supposed to encourage us to have faith and optimism towards life, since even the toughest times will eventually look up again in the end. Takaya definitely does have a lot of faith in his own ideals, and a person must be strong in a sense to not waver from them. But unfortunately, Takaya's ideals are at the polar opposite end of the Upright Fortune. So just like in Jin's case, he has a lot in common with the reverse of his respective archetype, which is the belief that everything that happens is up to fate and is therefore completely outside of our control. His motto of living in the moment may sound admirable on the surface, but the way in which this is lived out in his actions show how defeatist his attitude really is. One big example of this is how he never takes responsibility for his own actions. The first time we ever lay eyes on Strega is when they are confronting a man as part of a request from their revenge website. The man begs for his life, but Takaya says that it's none of his concern, and proceeds to shoot him. In Shinji and Chidori's case, he appears saddened by such meaningless deaths, but the way in which Takaya responds to the murders that he committed implies that he truly believes these people's deaths at these exact moments were determined solely by fate, and therefore he removes himself completely of any responsibility. Takaya allows this to fuel his self-justification to live as recklessly as he pleases. Now, the doubling down on this belief also serves as his way of adding meaning to his life and his limited time on Earth. The very fact that Persona users are able to access such an incredible ability, especially in Strega's case since they are the only ones to have survived the unspeakable horrors of the Kirijo experiments, show how they are the chosen individuals. That fate has somehow determined that they are special. Takaya says in our final encounter that he was given a power that he never wanted, and yet fate had permitted him to live, even though he was not attached to life. So this whole reasoning basically provides him with the justification and self-reassurance that he truly was the chosen one, which also explains his frustrations with SEES about their goals to get rid of the Dark Hour. You see, in Takaya's mind, the existence of Tartarus and the Dark Hour is fate. Developing a persona is the fate of the chosen. If all these things are fated destiny, why would SEES want to get rid of their special powers? He shows how far he doubles down on this particular belief when he asks SEES if they truly wish to return to their pathetic, ordinary lives. And so finally, Takaya shows the culmination of the reverse fortune in his speech to SEES before they battle him one last time. He brings up the fact that even though SEES has worked so hard to bring an end to the Dark Hour and the Shadows, their very actions of defeating the full moon bosses have actually sped up the arrival of Nyx. He believes that the death of all of humanity that Nyx will provide is true salvation because there is an exact and final certainty in death. While life and choosing to live, on the other hand, is full of uncertainties. You see, for someone who believes so strongly in destiny, this uncertainty can be terrifying. But coming to terms with this is exactly what the upright fortune is centered on. Life is cyclical by nature. Just as the sun rises, sets, and once again rises during each new day, the same can be said about the ups and downs that occur in our own lives. So it's fitting that Aegis is the one to comment that there is truth in what Takaya believes, since the Chariot is the other archetype that prominently focuses on accepting that change is inevitable. For this very reason, it is important that we take advantage of living in each moment as is given to us. But instead of carrying this out in the reckless and selfish behavior that Takaya portrayed, the fact that it's destiny for all mortals to die one day should spur us to live each moment to the fullest in the company of those we cherish the most. It's ironically fitting then that Takaya ended up dying alone. And in conclusion, the Fortune Tarot teaches the Fool that, in the grander scale of things, there will always be situations that are outside of his control. But that shouldn't discourage him from developing a sense of agency or responsibility for his own life. Instead, he should focus on nurturing what he can control. Moving on, the next archetype is the Justice, as represented by Ken Amada in P3. Like the Fortune before it, this tarot deals with themes that are not only connected to humanity, but to the greater scope of the universe itself, or the greater cosmos, or whatever you prefer to call it. The Upright Justice archetype teaches about objective truth, law, and, well, justice, which is all about restoring balance. And this very image is represented by the scale that is held by the figure as seen in the Rider-Waite deck. It's different from seeking revenge, which is only about the individual's feeling of fairness, retaliation, and the intent to harm. Even Ken's dialogue during his arc often focuses on his limited view of fairness, such as how it's not fair that Shinji is already dying anyway. You see, Ken's story focuses on how he struggles with the upright reading of the Justice Tarot due to his desire to exact revenge on Shinji for the murder of his mom. Shinji is not a completely innocent man, though the circumstances surrounding the situation is tragic. But the fact that Shinji never had any intention of harming anybody, let alone the murder of Ken's mom in mind, is never acknowledged by Ken himself. I mean, we never see him attempt to seek out the truth behind what happened that day, even when he finally confronts Shinji and vows to end his life during the full moon operation. Ken displays no desire to understand the truth. Now, taking a step back for a moment, it's important that we cover how any fair trial that's conducted in a court of law works to uncover the objective truth about a situation, and judgment is decided from there. The Upright Justice Tarot encompasses this search for the truth exactly, and is where Ken stumbles because he only goes off what he hears in passing during Akihiko and Shinji's conversations outside the ramen shop. You see, one of the most prominent negative aspects of the Justice Tarot warns us about how we are failing to see the other perspective, or the other facts, that contribute to the situation. That we are falling into the trap of seeing things only from our own perspective, which only fuels our personal vendettas, instead of bringing about balance and fairness to both those who were victims of wrongdoing and those who committed wrongdoing. Even after Shinji passes, Ken has to come to the acceptance that people will never be able to comprehend the truth behind his mom's and Shinji's deaths. But that doesn't mean that he has to fall into the same trap and shield himself away from uncovering the truth behind each situation that will come up in the future. Plus, another aspect of the justice that's explored is the concept of karma and how a person will eventually reap what he sows, just like how the scales of justice will balance out in the end. Shinji warns Ken about how carrying out his revenge will cause him to become just like him, finding little reason to live and believing that he is deserving of death. Though Takaya reveals that Ken is already considering that path, Shinji's sacrifice and wise words as the Hierophant really have a strong influence on Ken, basically giving him the push he needs to achieve the upright reading of the justice.
Give yourself time. Let your anger be your strength. Come on, kid, you're just a kid. You've got your whole life ahead of you, so don't waste it. Make it your own.
This is right in alignment with the positive factor of justice that not only realizes punishment for the truly wicked, but also provides protection for the innocent, which the end of the dark hour would ensure. Ken takes this advice to heart and says that he'll see Shinji's advice through to the very end in his ultimate Persona Awakening scene. And in conclusion, the Justice Tarot teaches the Fool about the moral and karmic balance of the world, and how true justice is objective by nature and presides over any one individual's feelings of fairness. The 12th archetype and the final persona user in P3 to be explored is the Hangman, Chidori Yoshino. Now, the Hangman image is rather disturbing, and its symbolism is contradictory in many ways. In this sense, it's similar to the Death Arcana, in which most people think it sends a negative and dangerous message on first glance, though the upright reading, like any of the other Arcana, shows this is not the case. As a whole, the Hangman invites the Fool to take a look at his mental habits and complexes that keep him in a state of passivity towards his life. This Arcana also implies that a person is stuck in between two roads, or two worlds, since depending on how we look at the image of the Hangman, he appears to be either dangling upside down by a rope, or, if flipped, can depict a person displaying a graceful pose that is similar to a dancer practicing ballet. Chidori's struggle between staying loyal to Strega's ideology and her desire to be with Junpei perfectly represents the conflict the Hangman implies. Unsurprisingly, the exploration of Chidori's character is incredibly nuanced. Like Jin and Takaya, she begins pretty firmly as the reverse of her archetype, since, unlike the forwardness and agency that the other two display, she is shown to be quite passive and apathetic towards life, not even caring about her own well-being as seen in her self-inflicted wounds. Her drawings appear to be the only thing that keeps her going at first, but she slowly appears more lively as Junpei spends time with her outside Iwatodai Station. But we find that her subservience to Strega takes priority when she kidnaps and threatens Junpei during the full moon operation in an attempt to bring SEES' activities to an end. In this scene, I found her reaction to losing her evoker very interesting, in which she states that she is not afraid of dying, but the panic that is evident in her reaction gave me the impression that she isn't so firmly set in that belief as she initially appears to be, especially in contrast to Jin and Takaya, who demonstrate time and time again how firmly they adhere to living in the moment and being unafraid of death. You see, a major aspect of the Hangman that appears contradictory is the fact that passivity and subservience to certain mental complex can lead to one's demise on one hand, But at the same time, coming to the acceptance of that exact mental truth is necessary to achieve inner peace with oneself. So, adding on to this, I took notice of how Chidori, out of all the persona users in P3, seems to do the most drastic back and forth, both internally and externally, as shown between her growth in the upright and reverse of her archetype, and her struggle between loyalty to Strega, or SEES. She slowly allows herself to enjoy the time she spends with Junpei during her detainment in the hospital, basically allowing herself to enjoy Strega's motto of living in each moment as it's given to her. But as a result, she really begins to struggle with the very truth that when we begin to enjoy things in life, it can be scary knowing that those things could be taken away from us at any time. And of course, both the last thing and also the exact thing that she needs during this time is for Takaya and Jin to show up and break her out of the hospital. And so we arrive at Chidori's final major conflict, which occurs inwardly and outwardly at the same time, where, at first, she is subservient to Strega and finds comfort in their ideology as she's battling SEES. But she ends up having a final change of heart after her defeat and the resulting shooting of Junpei by Takaya. Takaya shooting Junpei was the exact thing she needed to realize her true feelings and step away from her subservience to Takaya's influence. Just for a moment, I have to bring up how the image of the hangman, by the very nature that his pose is symbolic of the fine balance between life and death, commonly implies that some sort of sacrifice is necessary to make that mental change and achieve inner peace. And this is exactly what Chidori is called to do. She gives the ultimate sacrifice, exchanging her life to save Junpei's. And furthermore, as she talks to him in the dream sequence, she shows how she's achieved the rather contradictory upright reading of the hangman. By accepting and becoming fully subservient to the truth that her death is inevitable, she is able to utilize this belief as her strength to cherish Junpei's life and revive him. This is how she is able to pass on in peace, while also, on a rather sentimental level, is given the ability to experience living in each moment through Junpei after her persona combines with his. And so, in conclusion, the hangman teaches the fool that he doesn't have to accept the role as victim to any mental complex, but rather, he can use the inner dilemma he finds himself in to press forward and develop a different perspective. And that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and like, comment, and consider subscribing if you enjoyed and would like to see more. I have one more video planned for this particular series. Next time I will return to the Fool for a bit, then we'll cover the Death archetype as represented by Pharaohs, Roji, and the final boss, and finally we'll wrap it all up with the World Arcana. So until next time, take care. See ya.